The dust on the rocking chair had been disturbed, and Isaac Bennett knew immediately that someone had been sitting there on his front porch, waiting. He had ridden hard from the northern pasture, where 20 head of cattle had somehow broken through the fence line. And now, as the August sun beat down on his property just outside Fort Stockton, Texas, in this year of 1878, all he wanted was a cold drink and a moment of peace. Instead, he found a woman sitting in his favorite chair, her dark eyes tracking his every movement as he dismounted from his sorrel mare. She was beautiful in a way that made his chest tighten unexpectedly. Her black hair was pinned back in a practical bun, though several strands had escaped to frame her face. She wore a simple brown traveling dress that was dusty from the road, and her hands were folded calmly in her lap, despite the fact that she was a stranger on his property, uninvited and alone. "Can I help you, miss?" Isaac asked, keeping his voice neutral as he looped his horse's reins around the porch rail. He was a tall man, 30 years old, with sun-darkened skin and hair the color of wheat. His mother had always said he had kind eyes, but right now those eyes were cautious. The woman stood slowly, and Isaac could see that she was shaking slightly. Not from fear, he realized, but from exhaustion or perhaps relief. "Isaac Bennett?" she asked, and her voice had a catch in it that made him pause. "That's right." She pressed one hand to her chest as if to steady her breathing. "My name is Zara Dalton. I have been searching for you for 3 years." Isaac felt his eyebrows climb toward his hairline. 3 years. He had never heard of any Zara Dalton in his life. "I think you might have me confused with someone else, miss. I do not know you." "You do not," she agreed quickly. "But I know you, or rather, I know of you." She reached into the small leather bag at her side and pulled out a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age and handling. "Your brother gave me your name before he died." The world seemed to tilt sideways. Isaac's hand shot out to grip the porch railing. "My brother, James Bennett. He was killed in a stagecoach robbery outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico territory, 3 years ago this past spring." Isaac's throat closed. James. His younger brother by 4 years, who had left home at 18 to seek his fortune out west. Isaac had been running their father's ranch in Texas, taking care of their aging parents while James had gone off looking for adventure and gold. They had exchanged letters irregularly, and then one day the letters had simply stopped coming. Isaac had assumed his brother had moved on, perhaps gone to California, perhaps started a new life where old family ties did not matter anymore. "How did you know my brother?" Isaac managed to ask. Zara's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "He saved my life. I was traveling with my father to Santa Fe. We were merchants carrying goods from Kansas City. The bandits attacked our coach in broad daylight. They shot the driver first, then my father." Her voice broke, but she continued. "James was a passenger on that same coach. He fought back. He killed 2 of the bandits before they shot him. But before he died, he made them take me to the nearest town instead of leaving me in the desert. He gave them his gold watch in exchange for my safe passage." Isaac's vision blurred. That sounded exactly like something James would do, reckless and brave and stupidly noble. "Why did he give you my name?" "Because he knew he was dying and I was alone. My father was dead. I had no other family, and I was a 19-year-old woman in a territory where I knew no one. He told me to find you. He said his brother Isaac was a good man who ran a ranch in Fort Stockton, Texas, and that if I could get to you, you would help me." 3 years, Isaac repeated quietly. "Why did it take so long?" Zara's shoulders sagged. "I had no money. I had to work, save, survive. I spent a year in Santa Fe working as a seamstress, then another year traveling slowly east through the territory, taking whatever work I could find." I was in El Paso for 8 months working in a boarding house to save enough for the final journey here. Every town I passed through, I asked about you, tried to confirm you were real and not just the kind words of a dying man. She looked up at him, and he could see the exhaustion of years in her young face. She could not be more than 22 now. I am sorry it took me so long. Isaac did not know what to say. The grief for his brother, which he had pushed down and ignored for years, now rose up fresh and sharp. James had died a hero, saving a stranger's life. And that stranger had spent 3 years trying to fulfill a promise made in blood and dust. "Come inside," he said finally. "You look like you have not had a decent meal in days." The relief that washed over Zara's face was almost painful to see. "Thank you. I promise I will not impose on you long. I just needed to tell you about your brother to fulfill my promise to him. I can find work in town and repay you for any kindness you show me." Isaac pushed open the door to his ranch house. It was not fancy, just 4 rooms, a simple bachelor's home that his mother had worried over constantly before she died 2 years past. His father had followed her 6 months later, leaving Isaac alone with his cattle and his land and his memories. "We will talk about repayment later," Isaac said. "First, you need to eat and rest." The interior of the house was dim and cool, a relief after the blazing heat outside. Isaac gestured to the wooden table in the main room. "Sit. I will make coffee and find something for you to eat." Zara sank into one of the chairs as if her legs could no longer hold her. Isaac busied himself with the stove, stoking the fire and putting on a pot of coffee. He found some cold beef from yesterday's dinner, bread that was still fresh enough, and some preserves his neighbor Mrs. Henderson had brought by last week. It was not much, but it was food. As he worked, he could feel Zara's eyes on him, studying him the way someone might study a landmark they had traveled hundreds of miles to see. It made him self-conscious in a way he was not used to. He was a rancher, accustomed to solitude, comfortable with hard work and his own company. Having a beautiful woman in his kitchen, especially one with such a painful connection to his past, left him feeling unbalanced. "Tell me about James," he said finally, setting the food and coffee in front of her. "Tell me about his last days." Zara wrapped her hands around the warm coffee cup and took a sip before speaking. "He was the most alive person I had ever met." On the stagecoach, before the attack, he told stories that made everyone laugh. He talked about growing up here in Texas, about chasing cattle with his older brother, about how you once pulled him out of a flooding creek when you were boys. Isaac remembered that day. James had been 12, cocky and convinced he could swim across the swollen creek on a dare. Isaac had been 16 and had jumped in after him without hesitation when the current grabbed his little brother. Their mother had cried and their father had tanned both their hides, but they had laughed about it for years afterward. "He talked about you often in that last hour," Zara continued softly. "He said he regretted not writing more, not coming home to help with the ranch. He said you were the best man he knew, that you had always sacrificed for the family while he ran off chasing dreams." She looked up at Isaac, her dark eyes intense. "He loved you very much. He wanted me to tell you that. He wanted me to tell you that he was sorry." Isaac had to turn away, pretending to adjust the coffee pot so she would not see the tears in his eyes. All these years he had felt abandoned, had felt like James had chosen adventure over family. To learn now that his brother had thought of him at the end, had loved him, had even sent help in the form of this remarkable woman, it was almost too much. "Thank you," he said roughly. "Thank you for telling me." They sat in silence for a while as Zara ate. Isaac could see how hungry she was by the way she tried to pace herself, to eat slowly and politely, but her body betrayed her need. He set out more food without comment, and she accepted it with a grateful nod. "What will you do now?" Isaac asked eventually. "You said you have been searching for me for 3 years. You have found me, delivered your message. What are your plans?" Zara set down her coffee cup carefully. "I will find work in Fort Stockton if there is any to be had. I can sew, cook, clean. I am strong and I am not afraid of hard work. I have been taking care of myself for 3 years now. Do you have any family anywhere? Anyone who might be looking for you?" "No one. My mother died when I was young. My father was all I had, and he is buried in New Mexico territory." Isaac made a decision then, one that surprised him even as the words left his mouth. "Stay here. I need help on the ranch. I cannot pay much in money, but I can offer room and board, and it would be honest work." Zara's eyes widened. "I could not impose on you like that." "It is not an imposition if you are working for it. And besides," Isaac hesitated, then continued, "James sent you to me for help. I would be dishonoring his memory if I turned you away now. My mother would rise from her grave and haunt me if she knew I let a young woman wander off alone with nowhere to go." A smile, the first real smile he had seen from her, broke across Zara's face. It transformed her entirely, lighting up her features with a warmth that made Isaac's heart skip in a way he was not prepared for. "Are you certain?" "I am certain. There is a spare room that was my parents' before they passed. You can have that. The work will not be easy, though. I need help with the house, the garden, preserving food for winter, possibly helping with the animals when needed. I have been managing alone, but it has been difficult." "I can do all of that," Zara said quickly. "I promise I will earn my keep. You will not regret this." Isaac hoped she was right. He had a feeling his quiet, solitary life was about to change in ways he could not yet imagine. The first few days were an adjustment for both of them. Isaac was used to coming and going as he pleased, eating when hungry, sleeping when tired, keeping his own irregular schedule dictated by the needs of the ranch. Zara brought structure to the house, establishing regular meal times, cleaning and organizing spaces that had grown cluttered and dusty, bringing a feminine presence to a place that had been purely masculine for too long. She was up before dawn each morning, starting the stove, making coffee, preparing breakfast before Isaac headed out to check on the cattle. At first he protested, saying she did not need to wake so early, but she waved off his concerns. "I am used to hard work and early hours," she said. "Besides, you cannot work a full day on an empty stomach." She was right, of course. Isaac found himself actually looking forward to coming back to the house for the midday meal, knowing there would be hot food and pleasant company. Zara was easy to talk to once she relaxed a bit. She told him stories about her travels, about the people she had met and the places she had seen. In turn, he found himself opening up about the ranch, about his parents, about his memories of James. It was during one of these conversations, about 2 weeks after Zara's arrival, that Isaac realized he was falling for her. They were sitting on the porch in the evening, watching the sun set over the Texas prairie, and Zara was laughing at a story he had told about a particularly stubborn bull. The sound of her laughter, genuine and unguarded, did something to him. It made the house feel like a home again, made the endless work seem purposeful, made him think about the future instead of just surviving day to day. The realization terrified him. She was here because of a promise to his dead brother, not because she had any feelings for him. She was working for him, dependent on him for shelter and safety. It would be wrong to pursue anything romantic. He was 30 years old to her 22, her employer, the brother of the man who had saved her life. The power dynamics were all wrong, so he tried to push the feelings down, to maintain a respectful distance, to treat her as he would any ranch hand he might have hired. But it became increasingly difficult as the weeks passed, and he noticed more and more things about her. The way she hummed while cooking, the gentleness with which she tended the vegetable garden, the fierce determination in her eyes when she tackled a difficult task, the vulnerability that sometimes showed through when she thought no one was watching. Zara, for her part, was having her own complicated feelings. She had spent 3 years with a single purpose driving her forward. Find Isaac Bennett, deliver the message, honor the promise. She had not thought beyond that moment, had not planned for what would come after. She certainly had not planned on finding a man who made her feel safe and cared for in a way she had not experienced since her father died. Isaac was everything James had promised. Kind, hardworking, honorable. But he was also handsome in a quiet way, with strong hands and a gentle manner that contrasted with his obvious physical strength. When he smiled, which was becoming more frequent, it made her stomach flutter. When he looked at her, she felt seen in a way that was both exciting and frightening. But she was terrified of misreading the situation. He had taken her in out of obligation to his brother, not because he wanted her there for herself. He was just being kind, just being the good man James had described. To develop feelings for him, to hope for anything more than employer and employee, seemed like a betrayal of his generosity. So they danced around each other, both developing deeper feelings, both convinced the other saw them only as a convenient arrangement. It was Mrs. Henderson who finally noticed what was happening. The older woman stopped by one afternoon in late September, ostensibly to bring by some fresh eggs and catch up on news, but really to get a good look at the mysterious woman everyone in town was talking about. "So you are the one who has Isaac smiling again," Mrs. Henderson said bluntly, looking Zara up and down with shrewd eyes. "The whole town has been wondering." Zara felt her cheeks heat. "I am just the housekeeper, Mrs. Henderson. Mr. Bennett was kind enough to offer me work." "Mr. Bennett, is it? How formal." The older woman settled herself at the kitchen table uninvited. "I have known Isaac since he was a boy. I have never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." "I think you are mistaken," Zara said quickly, but her heart was pounding. "He has just been very generous to a stranger. Honey, I am 73 years old and I have been married twice. I know what attraction looks like, and that boy is attracted to you. Question is, do you feel the same way?" Zara busied herself with making tea, trying to compose her thoughts. "It does not matter how I feel. Isaac took me in because of a promise to his brother. I cannot take advantage of that kindness by developing inappropriate feelings." "Why would feelings be inappropriate? You are both unattached adults, are you not?" "Because I owe him everything. Because I have no family, no money, nowhere else to go. Because the power between us is not equal. He could send me away at any time." Mrs. Henderson snorted. "That boy would not send you away if you burned down his house. And as for the power not being equal, seems to me you have plenty of power. You have the power to make him happy, which is something I have not seen in years. His parents died, his brother disappeared, and he has been alone here just existing, not living. You changed that." "I cannot assume his feelings," Zara protested. "What if I am wrong? What if I ruin everything?" "And what if you are right?" Mrs. Henderson challenged. "What if you are both sitting here pining for each other and too scared to say anything? Life is too short and too hard out here to waste time on fear. My first husband died of cholera 6 months after we married. My second was killed by a rattlesnake after 10 good years. I learned that you take happiness when you can find it, because there are no guarantees." Zara sat down heavily in the chair across from the older woman. "What if he does not feel the same way? What if I tell him how I feel and he is just being polite? Then you will know, and you can decide what to do from there. But I am telling you, that man has feelings for you. I saw the way he looked at you when he rode up just now before he saw me here. That is not how a man looks at his housekeeper. After Mrs. Henderson left, Zara spent the rest of the afternoon in turmoil. Could it be true? Did Isaac have feelings for her beyond gratitude to his brother and basic human decency? And if so, what should she do about it? She was still wrestling with these thoughts when Isaac came in for supper. He washed up at the basin, and she noticed the way his shirt clung to his shoulders, damp with sweat from a day's work. She noticed the way his hair curled slightly at the nape of his neck where it needed cutting. She noticed the way he smiled at her when he saw what she had prepared, pot roast with vegetables from the garden. "This looks wonderful," he said, sitting down at the table. "You spoil me." "It is just food," she said, but she felt pleased by the compliment. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes before Isaac spoke again. "Mrs. Henderson seemed to enjoy her visit today. She is a very forthright woman." "That is one way to put it. I hope she did not interrogate you too much. She means well, but she can be a bit intrusive." Zara set down her fork and took a breath, gathering her courage. "She said some things that made me think." Isaac looked up, his eyes curious. "What kind of things?" "Things about not wasting time, about being honest with people." She twisted her napkin in her lap. "Isaac, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me, even if you think it might hurt my feelings." His expression became serious. "All right. You see me as just your housekeeper, someone you took in because of your brother." Isaac went very still. The air in the room seemed to thicken with tension. "Why do you ask?" "Because I need to know. Because these past few months have been the happiest I have been since my father died, and I cannot tell if that is just because I finally feel safe or if it is because of you specifically." The words were tumbling out now, and she could not stop them. "I need to know if I am just convenient help or if I am something more to you, because you are becoming something more to me, and I am terrified that I am making a fool of myself." Isaac stood abruptly, and for a moment Zara's heart plummeted. She had ruined everything. He was going to tell her this was inappropriate and she needed to leave. But instead of moving away, he came around the table and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Zara, you are not making a fool of yourself, and you are not just convenient help. You have not been since about the second week you were here, maybe not even since that first day when I found you sitting in my rocking chair looking lost and determined and beautiful." His grip on her hands tightened. "I have been trying so hard not to have these feelings because I thought they were inappropriate. You came here because of James, and I did not want to take advantage of that. I did not want you to feel obligated to return feelings out of gratitude." "I do not feel obligated," Zara said, her voice shaking. "I feel drawn to you. I feel at home with you. I feel like I have been searching for you my whole life, not just the past 3 years." Isaac reached up and cupped her face gently with one hand. "Can I kiss you, please?" she whispered. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, both of them testing this new territory. But then Zara leaned into it, and Isaac's arms came around her, and it deepened into something that spoke of all the longing and loneliness they had both been carrying. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Zara felt like something fundamental had shifted in her world. "I love you," Isaac said simply. "I know it has only been a few months, but I love you. I want you to stay, not as my housekeeper but as my partner. I want to build a life with you." Tears streamed down Zara's face, but she was smiling. "I love you too. I think I started falling for you the day I arrived and you took me in without question, just because your brother had faith in you. He was right about you. You are the best man I know." They sat there on the kitchen floor, holding each other as the sun set outside and the house grew dark around them. For the first time since her father's death, Zara felt truly at peace. And for the first time since his brother's disappearance, Isaac felt like his heart was whole again. The courtship that followed was tender and genuine. They took their time, learning each other's rhythms, discovering each other's dreams. Isaac taught Zara to ride, and she proved to be a natural horsewoman, taking to the saddle with the same determination she brought to everything else. They would ride out together to check on the cattle, and she learned the patterns of ranch life, the cycles of the seasons, the endless work required to keep a place running. Zara continued to manage the house, but now it felt different. She was not working for Isaac. She was working with him, building something together. She expanded the vegetable garden, planted flowers around the porch, made curtains for the windows, transformed the bachelor quarters into a real home. In October, Isaac took her to Fort Stockton for the harvest dance. It was the first time they appeared together as a couple in public, and the town gossips had a field day. But Isaac did not care. He held Zara's hand proudly, danced with her in the town square, and made it clear to everyone that this was the woman he loved. "People will talk," Zara warned him as they danced under the stars. "Let them talk," Isaac said. "I am done hiding how I feel about you." In November, as the weather turned cooler, Isaac proposed. It was not fancy or elaborate. They were sitting on the porch after supper, wrapped in blankets against the chill, watching the stars come out. Isaac simply turned to her and said, "Marry me." Zara laughed, a sound of pure joy. "Just like that. No pretty speech. I could give you a pretty speech if you want one. I could talk about how you have brought light back into my life, how you make every day worth living, how I cannot imagine a future without you in it. But it all comes down to the same thing. I love you, Zara Dalton, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. So, will you marry me?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They were married in late December, a simple ceremony in the Fort Stockton church with Mrs. Henderson and a few other townspeople as witnesses. Zara wore a dress she had sewn herself from cream-colored fabric Isaac had bought her in town. Isaac wore his best suit, the one he had worn to his mother's funeral, but this time the occasion was joyful. As they exchanged vows, Zara found herself thinking about James, about the promise she had made to a dying man, about the long journey that had brought her here. She wished James could see this, could see that his faith in his brother had been justified, that his final act of kindness had resulted in something beautiful. "I think he knows," Isaac whispered to her, as if reading her thoughts. "I think James is watching, and I think he is happy." Their wedding night was tender and passionate, both of them nervous and eager. The house that had been a bachelor's quarters, then an employer's residence, then a courtship home, now became a marriage bed. They loved each other with all the pent-up longing of months of restraint, and afterward they lay tangled together, talking and laughing and planning their future. The winter passed in a haze of newlywed happiness. They worked together during the day, managing the ranch, caring for the animals, preparing for spring. At night they would retreat to their bedroom, building their own private world of intimacy and trust. In late January, a letter arrived that changed everything. It was from a lawyer in Santa Fe, forwarded through several offices before finally reaching Fort Stockton. Isaac read it twice before he fully understood what it meant. "What is it?" Zara asked, seeing the shock on his face. "It is about James. Apparently, before he died, he filed a claim on a silver mine in the mountains outside Santa Fe. He put my name on the claim as his heir. The mine has been producing for the past 3 years, and there is money waiting for me, a lot of money." Zara's hand flew to her mouth. "James left you a mine." It seems he was not just chasing dreams. He actually found silver, and he made sure that if anything happened to him, I would benefit from it. Isaac's voice was thick with emotion. Even in death, he was looking out for me. The money from the mine was substantial. enough to transform their lives. Isaac could have used it to expand the ranch significantly, to buy more land and cattle, to become a major rancher in the territory. But instead, he and Zara talked long into the night about what they really wanted. "I do not need a huge ranch," Isaac said. "I like the size we have now. It is manageable. It lets me actually live my life instead of just working." "What do you want then?" Zara asked. "I want to use some of the money to improve what we have. Fix up the house properly, build a better barn, maybe hire a hand or two so I am not doing all the work alone. And the rest, I want to save it. For our children someday, for emergencies, for security." "Children," Zara said softly, and Isaac realized this was the first time they had talked about it explicitly. "I hope so, if you want them. I would like to have a family with you, Zara." She kissed him deeply. "I want that too, very much." Spring came, and with it the improvements to the ranch. They hired 2 young ranch hands, brothers named Tom and Eli, who had recently arrived from Missouri looking for work. They were good workers, respectful and hardworking, and their presence meant Isaac did not have to work from dawn to dusk every single day. With more free time, Isaac and Zara found themselves able to simply enjoy being together. They would take long rides in the evening, exploring the land, finding hidden valleys and streams. They would sit on the porch and talk about their dreams. They would spend lazy Sunday afternoons in bed, loving each other with the easy familiarity of a couple growing deeper into their commitment. In June, Zara realized she was pregnant. She told Isaac one evening as they sat watching the sunset, the same way they had spent so many evenings together. "I have news," she said, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby." Isaac's face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, wonder, and finally pure joy. "Truly, you are certain as I can be. I have missed my monthly courses twice now, and I have been feeling sick in the mornings. Mrs. Henderson says those are sure signs." Isaac let out a whoop of joy and swept her up in his arms, spinning her around despite her laughing protests. "We are going to be parents. Zara, we are going to have a baby." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the summer and fall. Zara continued to work around the house, though Isaac and Mrs. Henderson both scolded her regularly for doing too much. She would just laugh and tell them she was pregnant, not an invalid. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time," she would say. "I am fine." As her belly grew round, Isaac would often rest his hand on it, feeling the baby move inside. "Hello in there," he would whisper. "I am your papa and I cannot wait to meet you." In February of 1880, on a cold, clear night, Zara went into labor. Mrs. Henderson and the doctor came to help, and Isaac paced the front room nervously, listening to his wife's labored breathing and occasional cries of pain. "This is torture," he said to Tom, who had stayed to keep him company. "I should be in there with her. Doc says fathers just get in the way," Tom replied. "She will be fine. She is strong." After what felt like an eternity but was actually about 8 hours, a baby's cry pierced the air. The doctor emerged shortly after, smiling. "Congratulations, Mr. Bennett. You have a healthy son." A son. Isaac felt his heart expand in a way he had not known was possible. He rushed into the bedroom where Zara lay exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. "Meet your son," she said softly, and Isaac took the baby in his arms with wonder. The infant was red-faced and squalling with a surprising amount of dark hair. He was perfect. "He is beautiful," Isaac whispered. "You are beautiful. Thank you, Zara. Thank you for this gift." They named him James after the brother who had brought them together. James Bennett II, born into a world of love and security, never knowing the hardship and loss his parents had endured to create this family. The years that followed were full and rich. Young James grew into a lively toddler, then a curious boy, always exploring, always asking questions. He had his mother's dark coloring and his father's smile, and he was the light of both their lives. When James was 3, Zara became pregnant again. This time she gave birth to a daughter they named Clara, after Isaac's mother. Clara was quieter than her brother, more contemplative, with Isaac's wheat-colored hair and Zara's dark eyes. The ranch prospered under Isaac's steady management, and with the financial security provided by the silver mine. They were not the richest family in the territory, but they were comfortable and, more importantly, they were happy. Tom and Elise stayed on as permanent hands, and eventually both married local girls and built small houses on the Bennett property. The ranch became a community, a place of friendship and mutual support. Zara maintained her vegetable garden, which had grown into quite an impressive operation, providing food not just for their family but for others in the area. She taught Clara to sew and cook, passing on the skills her own mother had taught her. She taught James to read and write, making sure both her children would have education and opportunity. Isaac taught his son to ride and rope, to understand the land and the animals, to work hard and be honest. He made sure James knew the story of his namesake, the uncle who had died a hero and whose final act had brought the Bennett family together. On quiet evenings, when the children were asleep and the ranch was peaceful, Isaac and Zara would still sit on the porch in the rocking chairs, watching the sun set over the Texas prairie. Sometimes they would talk, sometimes they would simply hold hands in comfortable silence. "Do you ever think about that day I found you sitting in my rocking chair?" Isaac asked one evening when they had been married about 7 years. "All the time," Zara admitted. "I was so scared. I had traveled so far, and I did not know if you would even be real, if you would help me or turn me away. I am glad you came. I am glad James sent you to me. It was the last gift he gave me and the best one." "He knew," Zara said softly. "Somehow in those last moments he knew that we needed each other. You needed someone to share your life with, and I needed a place to belong. He brought us together." Isaac pulled her close, kissing her temple. "I love you, Zara Bennett. I loved you from that first day, even though I tried to deny it. I will love you until my last breath." "And I love you," she replied. "You gave me a home, a family, a purpose. You gave me everything." When young James turned 10, he started asking questions about his uncle, the man whose name he carried. Isaac and Zara sat him down and told him the whole story, about the stagecoach robbery, about his uncle's bravery, about how Zara had spent 3 years searching for Isaac to honor a promise. "So Uncle James was a hero," young James said, his eyes wide with wonder. "He was," Isaac confirmed. "And because of his courage, your mother found her way to me, and you and your sister were born. So in a way, Uncle James gave us our family." "I will try to be brave like him," the boy promised solemnly. "You already are," Zara said, hugging her son. "You are brave in your own way, and that is all we ask." When Clara was 8 and James was 13, Zara became pregnant one more time, a surprise baby that brought joy and a bit of chaos to the household. She gave birth to another boy they named William, after Isaac's father. William was a happy, easy baby who seemed to delight in everything. As the children grew, the Bennett Ranch became known throughout the area as a place of warmth and hospitality. Travelers knew they could stop and find a meal and a kind word. Neighbors knew they could count on the Bennetts in times of trouble. Isaac continued to manage the ranch with skill and care, teaching his sons the work while making sure Clara understood she was just as capable and valued. Zara became a respected figure in Fort Stockton, known for her wisdom, her kindness, and her skill with a needle. She took in sewing work from throughout the area, and though she did not need the money, she enjoyed the work and the connections it brought. Mrs. Henderson lived to be 89, sharp and opinionated to the end. On her deathbed, she called Zara to her side. "I told you," she said with satisfaction. "I told you that boy loved you. I am glad you listened to me." "I am glad too," Zara said, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for pushing me to be brave." "That is what old women are for," Mrs. Henderson said with a wheezing laugh. "To meddle and push and make sure young people do not waste their chances at happiness." As the 19th century drew to a close and the new century began, the wild west of their youth began to fade. The lawlessness that had characterized the frontier gave way to schools, churches, proper law enforcement. The railroad came through Fort Stockton, connecting them more easily to the rest of the country. But through all the changes, the Bennett family remained constant. Isaac and Zara, their love deepening with each passing year, growing old together with grace and gratitude. Their children, raised with love and taught to work hard and be kind, growing into fine adults who made their parents proud. Young James eventually took over the main ranch operations, marrying a teacher from town and starting his own family. Clara surprised everyone by becoming a doctor, one of the first female physicians in West Texas, dedicating her life to healing. William became a lawyer and went into politics, working to improve conditions for working families throughout the state. Isaac and Zara lived to see their grandchildren born, to see their legacy extending into the future. They remained active and involved well into their 60s. Isaac still riding the property daily until his health finally forced him to slow down. Zara still keeping the house and tending her garden until her hands grew too stiff with arthritis. On a warm evening in June of 1911, Isaac and Zara sat on their porch as they had done thousands of times before. They were both 70 now, their hair silver, their faces lined with age and experience. Around them, grandchildren played in the yard while their adult children sat talking and laughing. "We built something good here," Isaac said, watching his family with contentment. "We did," Zara agreed, leaning her head on his shoulder. "All because I was searching for you, and you were kind enough to let me stay." "I think we were searching for each other," Isaac said. "James just helped us find the way." As the sun set over the Texas prairie, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Isaac took Zara's hand and held it gently. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who had found each other against all odds, who had built a life and a family and a love that would endure long after they were gone. Their story would be passed down through generations of Bennetts, the tale of how a rancher found a woman sitting in his rocking chair, a woman who had been searching for him forever, and how that chance meeting, orchestrated by a dying man's final act of kindness, had created a legacy of love that would echo through the ages. When Isaac passed away peacefully in his sleep, 2 years later at the age of 72, Zara mourned deeply but not desperately. She knew they had been blessed with far more years together than most people ever get. She lived 3 more years herself, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, content in the knowledge that she had lived a full and meaningful life. Before she died, she called young James, now a man in his 50s, to her bedside. "I want you to know," she said, her voice weak but determined, "that finding your father, building this family, living this life, it was the greatest journey of my life. I spent 3 years searching for him, and I would have searched 30 more for what we found together." "He loved you until his last breath," James told her. "He talked about you constantly, about how you changed everything, about how you made him whole." Zara smiled, her eyes drifting closed. Tell your children and your children's children that love is worth searching for. That promises are worth keeping. That families are built not just from blood but from choice and commitment and daily acts of devotion. She passed away that evening as the sun set, and her children buried her next to Isaac under a large oak tree on the Bennett property. On their shared headstone, young James had inscribed, "Isaac and Zara Bennett, he was worth finding, she was worth keeping. Together they built a love that will never end." The Bennett Ranch continued for generations, passed down through the family, each generation adding their own chapter to the story. But the heart of it all, the foundation of everything, was always the love story of the rancher and the woman who had been searching for him forever. Two souls who found each other when they both needed it most, and who built something beautiful and lasting in the harsh but honest world of the Wild West. Their great-grandchildren would walk the same land, tend the same soil, watch the same sunsets over the Texas prairie. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, they would swear they could feel the presence of Isaac and Zara still there, still watching over the family they had created, still holding hands on the porch, still deeply and eternally in love. The rocking chairs remained on the porch through all the years, weathered and worn but carefully maintained. They became a symbol of the Bennett family legacy, representing patience and endurance and the rewards that come to those who are brave enough to search for what they need, and generous enough to offer shelter to those who seek them. And so the story ended, not with tragedy or loss, but with continuation and hope, with love multiplied across generations, with the proof that sometimes the longest journeys lead us exactly where we are meant to be, and sometimes the bravest thing we can do is sit in a stranger's rocking chair and wait for our life to begin. The Wild West of their youth had been tamed, but the wild and wonderful love story of Isaac and Zara Bennett lived on, a testament to courage, promise-keeping, and the transformative power of love that transcends death and distance to bring two lonely souls together and create something eternal. Their story became legend in Fort Stockton, told and retold, embellished and romanticized, but always maintaining its essential truth. That love, once found, is worth every sacrifice, every hardship, every long year of searching. And in the hearts of all who knew them or heard their story, Isaac and Zara Bennett lived forever, eternally young and hopeful and deeply in love, sitting together on a porch in West Texas, watching the sun set over land they loved, surrounded by family they cherished, at peace with the journey that had brought them together and the life they had built from a promise made by a dying man to a desperate young woman so many years before.